Baker Mayfield has finally been traded. He got traded to the Panthers for I think like a 6th-round pick or something. Um, First and foremost, again, we knew Baker Mayfield was going to get traded. You just didn't. I mean, again, the two teams that we heard most about was the Panthers and the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, the Seattle Seahawks because they traded away Russell Wilson, and right now I think their quarterback one is Drew Lock. And as the Broncos figured out, if Drew Lock is your number one quarterback, you don't have a quarterback. First and foremost, I'm happy for Baker Mayfield. I know. What? I'm happy. Let me not say I ain't no Baker Mayfield hater, but I'm happy for Baker Mayfield. I'm happy because you can tell that he just needed to get away from Cleveland. Now, some of that was self-imposed, but he just needed to get away from Cleveland. And with the acquisition of Deshaun Watson, you knew that it was pretty much over with from there, which is actually why he requested a trade. And you didn't know where he was going to go. You can kind of feel this. I'm starting to feel the same way a little bit about Jimmy Garoppolo, even though I know that he's going to end up somewhere. But I kind of feel good for Baker Mayfield. It just seemed like he needed a change of scenery. Now, let's have an honest conversation about Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback. Good. That's it. He's not a great quarterback. He's had great moments. I mean, when he beat the Steelers in the playoffs, but I think a lot of that was Big Ben throwing the ball all over the place. But he had great moments. But he's not a great player. Now, of course, he can develop and become a great player, but Baker Mayfield is not a great player. He's a good player. Now, the problem with that is kind of the same thing that we talk about with Andrew Wiggins. When you're drafted number one, you're not drafted to be a good player. You're drafted to be a franchise-changing player. And Baker Mayfield was not that for the Cleveland Browns, which is why a lot of people, if Baker Mayfield was drafted, I don't know, the 30th, if he was drafted 16th, if he was drafted in the second round, the leash for Baker Mayfield would be a lot longer than it was because he was drafted number one. Same thing with Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins was putting up good numbers in Minnesota. The problem is he wasn't putting up number one overall numbers, and he wasn't winning, especially when you look and you have also a number one overall pick in Karl Anthony Towns. So there is some pressure, there is a lot of pressure when it comes to that number one overall pick. And in my opinion, at least so far, Baker Mayfield has not lived up to that. Now, you go from Cleveland to Carolina. And this is a slam dunk for Carolina. First and foremost, the Sam Darnold experience has not worked. I will be the first to say I was wrong about Sam Darnold. I've said that before. I will say it again. I thought it was a scenery thing with Sam Darnold. I thought nobody can really succeed playing under the situation that he was playing when he was in the Jets or with the Jets. And I thought going to a team that has a good offensive line, that has good pieces in the wide receiver position, also bringing Robbie Anderson with him, I thought Sam Darnold was going to be great. I thought that this was going to be a rejuvenation for Sam Darnold. I was wrong. Sam Darnold has been god-awful. And he's been so bad that they brought in Cam Newton. Now, I know Sam Darnold was also injured, but they brought in Cam Newton, who had a really good first two games, but didn't really pan out. I feel the same way about Baker Mayfield that I feel about Sam Darnold, as much as I think this is great for Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield has a lot. I mean, let me say this, though. While I feel the same way for Baker Mayfield, saying I think he just needed a new change of scenery, Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold is not in the same position. And what do I mean by that? Sam Darnold had absolutely nothing outside of Robbie Anderson in New York. The organization was a trash organization. It had it had an okay history, but it had a trash current. He didn't have a good defense. He didn't have a good offense. He didn't really have anything good. You can't say that for Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. Yes, Cleveland has had a terrible history. And yes, Baker Mayfield has had four or five coaches since he's been in the league. However, Cleveland has one of the best offensive lines in the league. Cleveland has Kareem Hunt. Cleveland has Nick Chubb. Cleveland has Peoples-Jones. He had Odell Beckham Jr. He had Jarvis Landry. He had pieces. Njoku. I think the lack of success in Cleveland was more on Baker Mayfield than the lack of success that Sam Darnold had. Let me say this. Sam Darnold was bad. He's been bad all around. But I do think that when the lack of success that he saw, that he didn't see in New York was a lot due to the organization. I think for Baker Mayfield, outside of the coaches, Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year. So I do think that a lot of that was Baker Mayfield. Now, with all that being said, I do think it was good for the Panthers to get Baker Mayfield. I think that, again, you have a good offensive line, a very improved offensive line. We're going to see what happens with Christian McCaffrey. If Christian McCaffrey can stay on the field and stay healthy, he's a dynamic. He's arguably the best running back in the league when he's healthy.